Different musical.
What,
different musical.
Flashdance?
I do remember Flashdance.
She's a maniac on the floor, Jennifer Beals.
Well, I remember Kevin Bacon. He was Flashdance.
Dirty Dancing.
What?
No, Dirty Dancing is Patrick Swayze.
Any song in a
Kevin
country
Bacon,
act.
Flashdance?
Kevin Bacon is in something
only way
where
I
he's
can think
dancing lots in a wet.
She's a maniac.
Maybe it is Flashdance.
Maybe no, it's not. Is it?
Oh,
Flashdance? There was another dancey dance one. What? That's Kevin Bacon dance, man.
Footloose.
Footloose
This is the one he was singing a second ago.
Yeah, got you. But in Flashdance, it's not
Flashdance
that.
is Jennifer Beals.
I don't know who that is.
From the L Word.
That's also a thing I don't know.
Luscious.
Lesbians.
That's a good word.
Ludicrous.
They make good use of Ludacris.
do.
He's constantly just
They're
invited
constantly
over.
watching Fast and the Furious 2?
He's
3?
he's the most popular
Tokyo
celebrant
Drift.
Yeah.
He's
for
not in
lesbian
Tokyo
weddings.
Drift, is
Did
he?
you know that?
Ludacris is in Tokyo Drift.
Ludacris is in Tokyo. I know he was in a bunch of them. I didn't know he was in Tokyo Drift.
Ludacris is in Tokyo Drift.
He's the most popular celebrant for lesbian weddings.
I am not surprised, and yet I am also quite surprised.
Yeah.
Should be
'Cause
surprised.
It sounds
It's a
like
lie.
you made that up. Yeah.
Complete yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, bits and pieces.
I've been recording the last 2 minutes.
Well, please cut a lot of that out.
Hey, what's this podcast about?
It hasn't started yet, Belle. So we haven't actually done anything yet.
4 minutes in.
Yeah. Welcome to the Ancient Robot Games podcast. As always, I am Dougal.
And I'm Gil.
And we're joined today by the illustrious Roz Leahy.
Ooh, I've always wanted to be illustrious.
You made it. It happened.
Finally illustrated.
I finally have been
Right
illustrated.
now, you have. We illustrated you before you came in. We've got the pictures to show you now. No, we don't. I'm so sorry. I am actually a really bad artist, and it's only stickmen.
I have a face for radio. That's what everybody says. So
Oh, constantly.
yeah,
That's
that's the
it.
illustrations. Yeah.
You do introduce yourself like that, though. Hi, my name is Rob.
I have a face for radio.
It's quite uncomfortable for everyone involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of uncomfortable for everyone involved,
Welcome.
welcome, Roz.
My reputation precedes me.
It's really, really nice to have you finally on the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Roz is a wonderful person who is in our shop an awful lot in a very good way, who is well known for editing lots of RPGs, writing other ones, being part of the tabletop RPG and indie scene, as well as professional scene for many years now.
In a few years.
As someone who hasn't heard of your name, how would you describe your journey to get into all of these wonderful things that you're doing?
Oh, that's such a good question that I totally haven't prepared for.
We like to throw you under the bus. That is the main theme of the podcast.
I definitely didn't take a traditional route into doing what I do. So I edit TTRPGs as basically my main source of income, as well as on the side I teach game design, like workshops with kids and different local like youth organizations. But I mean, it sounds bad. I got into TTRPGs by complaining on a Discord, and I don't recommend anybody else do that. I can't in good conscience recommend that as a career path forward. I got really into TTRPGs like well over a decade ago when I was a teenager, and got really into like Apocalypse World and indie games and story games, and then burnt out really hard on those until like lockdown. And there was the big like itch.io like bundle for racial justice that everybody bought. And that had Troika in it. And anyone who's talked to me for even 5 seconds knows that I'm a big evangelist of Troika. I think it's just a gorgeous book, one of my favorite books to play with. And I started making stuff for Troika. They had game jams over lockdown and things like that. And so I started making little bits and pieces for Troika. And they had a new book coming out that I was so excited about. And I was like, oh, I've got all these different like books of backgrounds. It's like a sci-fi game. I'm gonna run it. It's gonna be so good. I've like been on the Discord. I'd like gotten to know some of the people around because I'm nice and friendly. And I noticed an issue with the map in the book. And I was like, oh, that doesn't look right. And I was like, hey, got the pre-release PDF. I think that doesn't make any sense, because if that's labeled right, then there should be like a wall in the middle of this corridor or something. I don't think that really works. And the editor of that book, Jared Crater, of the Moonrat, late of the Moonrat Conspiracy, currently of Space Penguin Inc., one of my favorite people of all time. He's got a big brain and an even bigger heart, and he wants to like welcome people into the industry. He wants to make it a welcoming place. He DM'd me and was just like, "Good catch. What are your rates?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have any rates because I was just complaining on a Discord." And he said, "Well, here is a website with rates. We'll get you on the next book." And he did. True to his word, he did. And that's how I got started. Because because of the generosity of one cool man.
That's kind of crazy. You actually have one specific point to point at and blame for all the amount of work that you've had to do since then.
Right. It's been wonderful. I really, really love it. I love sitting down with people, and like dev editing is my favorite part, because that's when someone sends me their like first draft of a thing and I get to go, cool, this sucks, but it could be good. Let's rip it apart. Let's get our fingers in here. Let's move things around. Let's cut big swathes and expand bits that are interesting and get rid of all the stuff that's superfluous, and really figure out what your book is going to be about here and now. And I love that part.
How do you manage those kinds of interactions? I mean, is it often that I know you've worked with people who are in the industry and been in the industry for a while, so they probably know, a little bit how it goes. But I would imagine people who are maybe working on their own, concepts, initially, yes, reaching out to someone to help them build it is a good first step and shows that they're relatively open-minded. But there's also some hesitancy to, have somebody else come in and completely rip your stuff apart, right? I'm curious about like the reverse of a thick skin, I guess, in a way. Like, how do you approach the conversations with these authors to make sure that you're getting your points across, but also you're not, babying them, if that makes sense?
I'll tell you what, I don't always get it right. So trial and error, really. I try to just approach it with like good humor. Like I really do. I preface every single one of these conversations with the same things, being like, this is my opinion, but that's what you're paying me for. You are welcome to take on board, or disregard anything I say, or go in a completely different direction. This is just how I see how we could make your book the best. And also really impress upon the writer that it's not me against them, or me against the book, or me against their ideas. It's both of us working for the reader, and that we always have to keep the reader in mind. Because I think a lot of authors, when they're making, especially adventures, because I mostly work in like adventures, and oftentimes it's in third-party stuff from Mothership, and people get really tied up in making their adventures interesting and exciting and cool, which is good. But Mothership is often a mystery game, survive, solve, save, right? Solve being a big part of every Mothership adventure. And a lot of authors fall into the pitfall of forgetting that they're writing for a GM. And so they closely guard their secrets in the book. And I think maybe the number one piece of advice I give to authors is, don't keep any secrets from the GM. I need to be able to pick up your book and know how to read it. I can't spend time trying to solve the mystery first. You need to give me the mystery up front. I can't go to the back of the book to see who done it and then work my way back. You need to give me the information up front. And I think that's like a very concrete example of remember who your audience is. It isn't the players, it's the GM. You're not writing for the people who are going to be sitting at the table, really. You're writing to help the GM. And so many authors lose sight of that.
Do you think that comes from the fact that most of them are, one, building their worlds and everything, and that kind of drags them into a kind of depth of world and universe outside of I'm writing this for someone, as well as the fact that they are obviously probably GMs themselves. They are running those games. They are coming at it from the perspective of, I know all the information already, right, and I'm running this for people, which is how I get the playtest, how I get all that going, which I think is a very different skill than it is for writing for RPGs, which does need to be, as you say, prescribed to people.
Yeah, I think GMs, when they're writing adventures, tend to underestimate how much of their adventure lives in their head. They will write down notes for themselves You're like, oh, this is the bare minimum I need to run this adventure. Sure, it's the bare minimum you need to run this adventure. I'm nobody. You need to give me a lot more. You can't. There are some things you can shortcut, but like the important stuff needs to be like in black and white on the paper. I think another thing that is, I think, under discussed is that TTRPG adventures are a weird form. It's a weird way to write. It's a hard way to write because you don't have a narrator, right? Because there isn't a narrator in an adventure. The narrator is going to be the GM.
You're empowering the narrator. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And people lose sight of that too, because they start writing. This is my usual soapbox that I go on. I go on this soapbox a lot.
Now we're here for this soapbox.
Please, yes, thank you.
Literally soaped up this box
Lathered
just
up.
for you.
Yeah, I'm finding it actually quite slippery.
That's okay. There's a whole section which we've abraded out so that you will stop when you slide a certain amount.
Loof
Like,
it.
don't
I'm going to kick my
Loof it
shoes
out.
off.
loof it out.
Loof it out.
Loof it out.
Okay, I'm going to kick my shoes off.
Yeah.
I have no grip on these.
That's totally fine. It's all good. Yeah.
There's no narrator, and people lose sight of that, and it leads to a kind of writing in TTRPG adventures that I've taken to calling smells like nothing in here writing, where the writer will give information that would make sense in a story, in a novel, or, for someone who has like more knowledge of the world, but doesn't make any sense to include for your players, because your players and your player characters are here in this room now and only now. And all they can see is what's there now. And all they can hear is what's happening right now. So I had a book once that had the line, oh, the yellow paint had long since been washed away by all the acid tides in this acid sea or whatever. I was like, you've described nothing then. That's an absence. There's no yellow paint. So say something else.
Yeah.
What is there? What can I see? Don't tell me what's no longer there to be seen. That doesn't give me anything to convey to my players. Similarly, if you walk into a room and it's been absolutely trashed, you don't know how long it's been trashed for, really, unless you have other clues. And saying in your adventure, in your description of the room, it's been trashed like this for years or whatever. Okay, but how do I know that? What does that actually mean for the physical reality of the fiction that we're all trying to inhabit? And that's really where you need to bring your mind to when you're looking at those parts of your adventure is what is there right here, right now, right here, right now.
It's a really interesting thing because it is narrative editing, because there is a world building and kind of side to what you're doing, but it's also mechanically editing.
Yeah, I mean, it's fiction editing rather than narrative editing.
Yeah, a much better way to describe it. But there is a side to the RPG game itself in the fact that it is a game. It is not just a description of things that people are probably in at that moment. There is also a how to play side to this as well. How do you work within that in a way to teach the DM or GM how to run a thing while still being able to keep the feel and the atmosphere of the modular adventure or whole rule set going? Yeah, sort of not breaking the immersion, because as someone who reads a lot of these books, I find myself getting swept up in it, getting into the world as I'm reading it, even if I'm not doing it directly for players at that time. And that, I think, is a really important thing to keep me engaged in the adventure enough so that I can run it. So having that almost disconnect of a mechanical thing separated from a fictional narrative side of things, if that breaks too much and is too different, I can kind of lose a little bit of what I'm going for. Do you find that that's a difficult thing to edit for, or is it a thing that kind of comes up quite naturally due to the way that RPGs work in general?
Do you mean something like, you're reading through a dungeon and it's big evocative description of a room and it also says 2d6 skeletons?
Yeah, here's a bunch of stats and there's 2d6s and everything else like that. How does that mechanical side come into the editing in a way that does not break that immersion, if that's even something you think about?
I I think immersion is overrated broadly. I think it's something that's overvalued in TTRPGs in general. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with breaking immersion. I used to work in escape rooms as well. And in escape rooms, it was like really drilled into us, like immersion. I worked for like a big multinational escape room corporation. They were like, oh, immersion's going to be the be all and end all of our whole deal. I don't work for them anymore because I found that that emphasis on immersion was often coming at the expense of the game, of the gameplay experience, right? And I think this happens in TTRPGs all the time. I think it's people are afraid to break immersion. People are worried about, oh, I wish I'd said something differently, but if I say something, it'll break immersion, or those kinds of things. I think a focus on immersion is really bad for a TTRPG session. It's okay for us to realize that we're sitting at a table playing a game. Sometimes it's good. Obviously, it's really cool and exciting and often meaningful when we find ourselves like getting really lost into a scene. But I think focusing on that as like the pinnacle of a TTRPG session can come with huge amounts of drawbacks, like socially and at the table and things. And I feel similarly when editing a book, like if someone's going too far on trying to like make this like an immersive text, I think once again, that's kind of losing sight of the fact that this is at the end of the day, like a tool that you want to use at a table or before a table. Yeah. Encyclopedia, or even just like, someone sitting next to you being like, all right, use this dice. You're like, okay, right, cool. I don't have to remember that. It's here. Because there's a lot of mental work that goes into running a TTRPG. And I really think like the book needs to take as much of that off your shoulders as possible. And that doesn't necessarily mean always more rules, but like the text should always be supportive, whether it's a description of a dungeon room or random encounters or like a procedure that this game has. Using the procedure should be less work than not using it,
So when, obviously you see a lot of these just because it's your work.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, does it ruin novelty for you?
Yes.
And in which case, when you get in a draft
mm-hmm.
and you're going to be going through it, what elements when they come at you either get you excited or at least as close as you can get to excited for something there's a bit different or an interesting approach. And then on the flip side, are there times or tropes or things that you see again and again that just make you less enthusiastic about what this game's going to end up being?
I think the first question, like what gets me excited, is harder to answer because the answer is novelty, right? The answer is like something I've never seen before or something that's coming at things in a new way. And well, I don't know what that would look like, right? At the moment. So it's hard to point to anything in particular.
Have you experienced that, in the last couple of years?
Yeah. A few years ago, I worked with a local publisher, Stout. Shout out Brian. And they put out Joe Reed's Border Riding.
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting book. It's an ordnance survey map. So it's hardly even a book, but a game. Yeah.
So what was exciting about it?
I mean, the game itself was really exciting. It's very local and that's fun. It's about very like specific local history and traditions. And when something's able to like really draw on something like real and try and turn that into a game, I always get very excited. But also the form factor is gorgeous. And it's like when Brian was explaining to me, I was like, I'm so in. I just think it's so whimsical and fun to just like unfold this big ordnance survey map of a game. It was an interesting challenge as well to work on.
It was really cool. We actually had the launch event for that in the shop.
That's right.
And we had, I think it was 5 or 6 different tables playing at the same time, and having them all had this big map folded out and working from that map to draw their own maps. Border riding is based upon the idea of border ridings, which was a common ridings, which was a tradition essentially where people used to ride around their area, which defined what was theirs and what wasn't theirs.
Still ongoing.
Still ongoing.
Yeah, they still do it. It is a up-to-date practice. It is every year in the borders. In the borders towns, they still do it.
It's awesome. I'm seeing people do it there because that kind of qualification of what you're actually building in that game over 100 years, essentially swapping out the storytelling between people, is having an us and having a them, and then defining what that common writing is for your group. Watching people take that in different ways was one of the best experiences I think I had being involved in a new RPG, where one group, for example, did it in a very Lord of the Rings themed way and had us is elves and them is orcs, which changed things up hugely from the kind of other modern setting stuff that was there. Someone else chose their common writings as arson, which meant they burned down their entire village every single time it went from player to player, and it was just a delight to see how different those games could be. And I think that's always been a huge joy of mine, to see the same people use the same prompt, the same setup for a game, for an adventure, for a module, and have absolutely completely different experiences, each as valid as each other, each as enjoyable as each other in completely different ways, dependent on everyone at the table, not just dependent on which GM it is, but like which other people are involved and how much input they do as well. So that was a huge joy with border riding for sure.
The us and them of that whole game as well was like kind of a challenging edit as well, because I was like, oh, this is touching on some like really like potent, deep. I mean, even more today, but even a few years ago, it was like, oh, this is really potent themes of like who's us and who's them, and you know, all the questions of like, you know, immigration and integration and all these things. And it was an exciting book to get, but it was also one where I had to put my hands and be like, are you sure you want me to edit this? I'm so white. There's maybe there's like maybe more to talk about in there than I feel prepared to. They had the sensitivity reader on as well to like look at that stuff, and I was like, okay, cool. I feel more supported in tackling this now. The other question,
I guess the flip side is in terms of the things that you see a lot of that you don't like or that you think are really overdone.
Are you sick of rogues?
Listen, I could go on my anti-thief rant. I think adding the thief to original D&D like was the beginning of the end.
So it started ending.
It started ending in about 1975.
Like 40 years ago. 50. Oh,
yeah, you're so old.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go on my rant about why thieves was the beginning of the end. Hit me up at gmail.com. I will tell you, I will go on my rant about why...
All pro-rogue sentiments send through to my email.
Send to my email address. That's actually my... Can we bleep that? That is my actual email address. A thing that will... Again, I mostly work in adventures. The mechanics side of TTRPGs are less interesting to me, and they're really, in a lot of my work, they're mostly only interesting to me insofar as I need to know them so I can make sure that everything's formatted correctly in the adventure. But when I look at an adventure, I will roll my eyes immediately if it's written in the second person. If it's like, you do anything, you walk into this room, and I'm like, stop right there. No, I don't. I'm the GM.
You're not writing a script for them.
You're not writing a script. Adventures that are overly prescriptive, right? Anything that says, oh, you can jump across the chasm with a speed check. Stop right there. Just tell me there's a chasm. Tell me how big the chasm is, because you don't know what's going on at my table. And if you say you can get across the chasm with a speed check, an inexperienced DM is going to read that and be like, okay, everybody make a speed check and see if you get across. Whereas if you just say, tell me what's here, even an inexperienced DM will be able to be like, this is the chasm. This is how long it is. This is how big it is. And whether you tell that to the players or not depends on your style and your thing. But that leaves the options open for a player to be like, well, could I try jumping across? And he was like, oh, well, I've read my GM's handbook and I know that we'd probably need to make a pretty hard speed check to do that. Or someone's like, well, I've got rope. Cool. Well, then of course rope will get you across. But don't, like, people who preempt solutions in their adventures, it's so natural to do. It's so easy to fall into. Get it out. Just give me the challenge. And does X, Y, or Z approach work to defeat it? That is the GM's job to figure out if that would work, right? The GM is the interface between the players and the world. So they ultimately, it's their call, right? I just get to tell you that I just get to put things in the world as the writer, and the players get to see those things through the GM. It's a really weird thing we do.
It is. How integrated is the industry within that? So I think it's like anyone working in movies and things like that will stay to the credits and look at the bits where they will need to go and get their gaffer from and go, oh, well, that was really well set up. I'm going to find that person and then get in contact with them. When it comes to being the credits for an adventure module and anything else like that, are there certain people who you found who are looking through these things specifically and go, oh, that was really well edited. I'm going to get in touch with that person? Or do you think it comes more from this kind of word of mouth side of things, just through, oh, so-and-so was great to work with, you should work with them?
I think it's from my experience, it's been very word of mouth. It's nice to be able to put the credits in my website for when someone does get in touch, or if I, need to advertise myself a bit more. It is nice to be able to be like, oh, I did some proofreading for Mothership. I did some Warhammer 40k stuff, or worked on a Troika book, and get to be like, put those there. But like, see, some people you like have trusted me, for better or worse. You think about the editing in a movie because it's a really important part of how you see a shot, see a scene. I don't think people think about the editing in a book, particularly. It's that bit from Futurama. If you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. I need to
underappreciated.
I wouldn't go that far. My job is to be invisible.
If someone notices it, they're noticing the wrong thing.
Right.
Speaking of the kind of invisibility, you get something that's pretty rough and you have to do a lot of work to it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever reach the point where you feel like you're creating more than you are editing? And does that change the dynamic in your head?
Is that still the ship of Theseus?
Oh, that has happened to me a couple times. It's something I don't do anymore. If I get a book that needs that amount of quote unquote editing, like I'll do a round of development and then I will, I'll send it back. And if they send it back to me and I'm still like, this isn't done, I'll be like, so here's the thing, you can pay me for some more dev and we can talk a bit more about like what needs to be expanded here, but other than that, like I can't. I did it early in my career.
Writing it for them.
I wrote it for them.
Yeah.
I heard of at least one publisher who said something along the lines of, I hire writers for ideas and editors to write.
Yeah.
I don't work with them. They're in the Whisper networks. I hope they don't listen to this. They'll know who they are.
No one listens to this. Don't worry.
No hard feelings.
Except the cows.
But
Call back.
Actually, this was so many words of mouth. I don't even know who said it. But yeah, there's stuff like that. Like that comes up quite a bit. And I try not to. But it's hard because it's hard to resist the temptation to be like, could really rewrite this whole paragraph and it would make more sense and be better. But that's not my job.
Are there times where people come to you for that aspect in terms of saying, I have these ideas, but I'm not great at doing or taking them forward in this way. So can we collaborate on the actual, I don't know at what stage it would be, but a little bit more in depth. And do you then see yourself as like a co-creator rather than a editor?
If that happens, then I get to say, sure, my writing rates are much higher.
Yeah, exactly.
than my editing rates. And that's
what happens.
That's just what happens.
Yeah.
Usually people balk at that. I'm like, cool. But I get things that are quite rough. People will sometimes not even like run a spell check on it before handing it over to me. And I'm like, okay, well,
testing you.
That's the barest courtesy, is to just be like, is it F7? Does any red underlines? I should better fix those. Sure, it's nice to have the easy wins for me when I get to press F7, but it feels a bit rude. Like a little rude.
You could just F7 and then send it back and going, I sorted it all, I changed your thing, and they will be appreciative that you did some work.
Honestly, sometimes you get clients who are so precious about their work that they'll pay your full rate for you to be like, looks good.
Fair.
You know, it's the classic graphic designer like package of like, yeah, if you want to, you pay me more and I'll just do exactly your idea with no changes, or we can do something that looks good and you can pay my actual rates. But no, yeah, it's a weird job, and I think there's people don't always know what goes into it, and so I do often work with like very new writers and experienced writers, and you know, I do try my best because obviously I got into this job from someone being like incredibly gracious with their time and generous and really welcoming. And so I always, like, if I'm working with someone who's clearly this is a passion project, they've been working on it in their spare time in between shifts at their supermarket job, I do try really hard to be like, I'm going to give you my time here to like, let's make something good together. If it's completely unacceptable, like I don't have the time necessary to make it like what it needs to be for me to want to put my name on it. I will have to say that to them sometimes, but I really try not to. I really try to be like, hey, your core idea is good here. Like, focus on that. I'll do some rounds of dev with you. Go away and develop this idea, this set of ideas. And like get rid of anything in the book that's there because you're like, well, a book needs to have X, Y, and Z in it. Get rid of those and just see what you're left with when you get rid of the default stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
As someone who has known you for a little while, I know that you are also into many other parts of the gaming industry. Not as much from the background, but definitely from someone who enjoys things like Netrunner.
I do enjoy things. I do enjoy Netrunner.
Used to be Magic, but also a bunch of other board games that we have definitely had a chance to play together and against each other. Is there much of a crossover, do you feel, between those two different sides of the industry for you personally? Or do you feel like, no, those are two very separate hobbies, and one of which is my job,
Right.
and the other one is something I just simply do for fun? Is there as much of a crossover between those two kind of media, I guess?
Sometimes there's a crossover for me because I sometimes get to proofread a board game manual. Shout out Judson, Deep Regrets.
Shout out Judson.
Shout out Judson.
Judson.
Yeah.
That was Judson shouting out.
Oh, okay. He was here very briefly.
This is how we find out if Judson listens.
Comment, Judson, comment.
Comment down below if you're Judson. But other than that, like they don't cross over very much for me. I used to think that there was an untapped market for people board gamifying their RPGs and getting them to the point where they can sit up on the shelves in a board game shop next to, you know, your Catans and your Tickets to Rides. Those are my picks. And some of them have, like, we've got Alice is Missing is like a very good example, or
Fiasco.
Fiasco was the other one I was going to say. But those also aren't the kind of games I really play. I'm a big treat a dungeon like an escape room kind of girl. So no, they don't cross over very much for me. They tickle very different parts of my brain, whether I'm running or playing them. I think there are similar things I look for in both, in a sense. Something I really look for in both a board game and a TTRPG is doing as much as possible with as little as possible. You know me, if you come to me and are like, this card game only uses 18 cards, I'm like, let's go. Let's go.
Give me 10 copies. Everyone's getting one.
Right. Give me, yes, exactly. That lives in my back pocket. That lives in my bag. I'm busting it out of the pub. Let's go. We're samurais. You've only got 6 cards. You know, let's go. It's all about what's going on in each other's brain. Great. Love that. I will never not pick one up. My board game shelf has got just so many tiny little boxes and wallets in it. And similarly in TTRPGs, like, if you give me a 200-page rulebook, I'm not going to read it. I don't have the time. I spend so much time in my day job reading TTRPG books. I need something that gets to the point quickly. I also don't need another system. But that's my personal thing. I have the kinds of games I like to play. I have the way I like to play. I'm 31 years old. I'm stuck in my ways.
Oh my god!
Give me an
so
adventure.
old.
Give me an adventure.
Oh, jeez.
If you give me an adventure that's full of ideas, that's full of that's content. That's stuff. That's people. That's places. That's ideas. That's relationships.
It's one of my favorite things, I think, that I have ever read when it comes to TTRPGs is Knock magazine by Mary Mushman. It is very OSE and OSR coded, but it is filled like to the brim, as in the dust jacket on the inside there is usually a mega dungeon, and that's not even opening the book yet.
Right.
It is absolutely stuffed with so many different writers doing so many different things, be it D100 horse names to this is an interview about why I think OSR doesn't work, which is interesting in an OSR based thing.
Right. The OSR is dead.
Just like,
Let's
yeah,
get the OSR back.
it's really interesting. And then so many other things of like, here's a bunch of enemies, or here's a big dungeon, or here's this
Right.
thing. But there are hundreds of them in each issue of Knock magazine, and it's become my favorite thing to just dive into and give me those ideas, where to go from without being a prescribed sort of thing.
What's interesting about Knock magazine for me is that I think it really drills down to that idea that you have like your GM binder, right? I was like, oh, there's cool things. I'm going to stick something in here, and then I have this. I have my D100 horse names in my binder for when I need it, which I think is like it's almost a thing that's gone out. It used to be more of a thing, kids in the 80s with their like D&D binder. We've got so many systems now, and people are interested in like novelty and new and interesting ways to interact with like the narrative and the fiction. And I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening there. But I still have this kind of like fake nostalgia for a type of D&D I never got to see firsthand. And as much as the OSR is dead, like that's real. It's full of bigots and racists. And I understand that nostalgia is like an inherently fascist emotion. This like longing for, specifically I'm longing for an imagined past that didn't exist. Like I am aware of that. But I do think that there are like forms of play that you get when you look at that kind of play that I think people are so quick to dismiss out of hand because they're old. And like kind of all of my favorite stuff's old. I like 1940s movies. I like
very fascist of you.
To like 1940s movies.
No,
like probably. Well, yes. I mean, like a little bit. I'm so reluctant to dismiss because TTRPGs are so young, right? They are so young. D&D was invented in the 70s, right? That was 50 years ago. That is a blink of an eye. That is nothing. And I think it would be incredibly hubristic of us to look at that first game and be like, well, we've come on so far, so many leaps and bounds since then. We don't have to think at all about what original D&D was doing. Actually, I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff in that first book. Like it's probably the RPG I've played the most of is original D&D. It's got so much in it, like so much packed into those 3 little brown booklets that you can really fuel an entire campaign with them still. And I get a little sad with like how much people, I mean, it's a product of a lot of things, right? But it's always the new hotness. It's always someone trying different things, something new. And I'm like, I kind of don't need a new way to roll dice, I think.
Really interesting to be completely opposite from what you said that you really enjoyed, which is completely new things.
Like, no, but
mechanic
Mechanically.
and system. Like you don't.
Yeah,
you don't
I don't care about mechanics.
You don't want a
Novel-
new system every time.
No, but novel ideas in
Story.
in stories and in adventures in places. I want to go somewhere I've never been before. Give me a new location. Give me a new idea, or take something that's old and give me a new twist on it. It's fascinating though, because I think another one of the strengths of kind of a more old schooly D&D thing is I think tropes are kind of great, like, and cliches. They like shortcuts. But they're great. One of the cool things about old school D&D for me is I can sit down with a bunch of people who don't know each other, and I can be like, all right, so it's kind of fantasy, orcs and wizards and that. And they go, yeah, sure. I have an idea in my head. We don't all have the same idea, but because it's all pretty much close enough, we can sit and play a game together. with no other world building whatsoever. We can go straight into the game. And I think that's kind of magic too.
Yeah, definitely. We could literally talk about these things, I think, for at least another 4 episodes worth of stuff. But unfortunately, that is us out of time for today.
Lights won't last.
The lights won't last. Yeah, they will go off. Thank you so much for coming and joining with us. We will get you back and talk about more of these things. We will start exactly where we left off about tropes and how useful they are. But yeah, I can't thank you enough. If people do want to know more about the work that you're doing, where would be the best place for them to go to?
If you want to know more about what I'm doing, you can go to my website, which is a little complicated. So you can just put it in the show notes, right? You can find it there.
Sure.
You have show notes
down below.
Link down below to my website where you can get in touch. You can also, if you didn't get enough of my voice here, you can hear me at presumably much worse audio quality at my own podcast, where me and my co-host Jane analyze the works of sci-fi author Philip K. Dick through a trans feminist lens. And that's called Chicks with Dick, wherever you get your podcasts.
One of the greatest names for a podcast.
Be careful, don't like it too much.
I'm so sorry. I will stop liking it. I think it's mediocre.
I need to plug it because for some reason our SEO is awful.
Or great.
No, for some reason it's not the first thing that comes up if you Google it.
That's
but
we'll change that.
We just released an episode on the Defenders, so check that out. Fascinating story. He wasn't a good man, nor was he always a good writer, but what he did have was lots of stories.
Yes.
So we're not going to run out of content anytime soon. But yeah, my website. I don't use social media anymore. If you're my friend, you can add me on Instagram, but good luck.
Thank you for listening to the Ancient Robot Games podcast. As always, I have been Dougal.
And I am Gil.
And this has been recorded and edited by Ryan Scott. If you liked this, or didn't...
Even if you didn't,
please let us know in the comments or via email or Pigeon, if you got Pigeon.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like us, drop us a line. And if you don't, do this really, really cool thing where you press follow or like. It actually works against us. So we'll still get the message.
Thank you very much for coming and listening with us. And we'll hear you next time.